In the remote mountains of Tibet, where oxygen is scarce and life demands extraordinary resilience, Buddhist monks have maintained their physical and digestive health for over 1,000 years without modern medicine. While Western medicine relies heavily on pharmaceutical interventions, these spiritual practitioners have preserved ancient wisdom that modern research is only beginning to validate. What if the solution to chronic heartburn and age-related muscle deterioration has been hiding in plain sight, passed down through generations of Tibetan healers? Today I will reveal 3 specific herbal tonics that Tibetan monks use daily to maintain digestive balance and muscular strength well into their 80s and 90s. But before we dive into these powerful remedies, I need to warn you about something critical that most people get completely wrong about herbal medicine, something that could render these tonics completely ineffective if you do not understand it properly. Stay with me because what I am about to share could transform your understanding of natural healing. I am Dr. Grace Nakamura, a gastroenterologist with over 15 years of clinical experience, and I have spent the last 3 years studying traditional healing practices across Asia, specifically focusing on Tibetan medicine and its applications for digestive disorder and sarcopenia. My research journey began when I encountered a 78-year-old Tibetan monk who had never experienced acid reflux despite eating only 2 meals a day, and who could still perform physical labor that would exhaust men half his age. This encounter led me down a path of discovery that challenged everything I thought I knew about treating chronic digestive conditions and muscle wasting. What I found was not mysticism or pseudoscience, but a sophisticated system of herbal medicine backed by compounds that modern pharmacology is only now beginning to understand. But here is something fascinating that will make everything I share today even more relevant to your situation. The same inflammatory pathways that cause heartburn and acid reflux are intimately connected to the mechanisms that lead to muscle loss as we age. Tibetan monks understood this connection centuries before modern medicine identified the role of systemic inflammation in both digestive disorders and sarcopenia. They did not treat these as separate conditions but as manifestations of the same underlying imbalance. This is why their approach is so powerful, and why the 3 tonics I'm about to reveal work synergistically to address both issues simultaneously. Before I share the first tonic, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that your digestive issues seem to worsen during periods of stress or when you feel physically weak? Keep that thought in mind because it will make perfect sense in just a moment. The first tonic used by Tibetan monks is prepared from Rhodiola rosea, a plant that grows at extreme altitudes where few other species can survive. But this is not just any herbal tea. The monks use a specific preparation method that concentrates the active compounds called rosavins and salidroside in ways that commercial supplements cannot replicate. Here is what makes this tonic extraordinary for both heartburn and muscle preservation. Rhodiola works by modulating cortisol levels and reducing systemic inflammation through multiple pathways. When cortisol remains chronically elevated, it weakens the lower esophageal sphincter, the muscular valve that prevents stomach acid from flowing back into the esophagus. At the same time, elevated cortisol accelerates muscle protein breakdown and inhibits muscle protein synthesis. The monks discovered that consuming rhodiola tonic twice daily, prepared in a specific way that I will explain in detail, addresses both problems at their root cause. Now, you might be wondering why you have never heard about this from your doctor, and there is a critical reason for that which I will reveal shortly. But first, let me explain exactly how the monks prepare this tonic, because the method is absolutely crucial to its effectiveness. They harvest rhodiola roots in late autumn, when the concentration of active compounds reaches its peak. The roots are then dried slowly, at room temperature for 3 weeks, never in direct sunlight, which would degrade the rosavins. Here is the preparation that produces results. They grind 10 grams of dried rhodiola root into a coarse powder and steep it in 500 milliliters of water at exactly 80 degrees Celsius for 25 minutes. This temperature is critical. Boiling water destroys many of the beneficial compounds, while water that is too cool fails to extract them efficiently. The monks strain the liquid and consume it warm, 1 cup 30 minutes before their first meal, and another cup 30 minutes before their evening meal. But here is something remarkable that modern research only confirmed in the last 5 years. The timing of consumption relative to meals is not arbitrary. Rhodiola stimulates the production of gastric mucin, a protective layer that shields the stomach lining from acid damage. By consuming the tonic 30 minutes before eating, the monks ensure this protective mechanism is fully activated before food triggers acid production. Additionally, rhodiola enhances mitochondrial function in muscle cells, improving their ability to utilize amino acids from food for protein synthesis, rather than allowing those amino acids to be broken down for energy. This dual action explains why monks who consume this tonic regularly experience virtually no acid reflux and maintain muscle mass that would be exceptional even for sedentary individuals half their age, let alone for people who consume a primarily plant-based diet with limited protein. Now, I mentioned there was a critical reason why your doctor probably never told you about this, and here it is. Pharmaceutical companies cannot patent natural compounds in their original form. There is no financial incentive for them to research or promote herbal tonics that people can prepare at home for pennies per dose. The few studies that exist on rhodiola are typically funded by small research grants or universities with specific interests in traditional medicine. This does not mean the research is not rigorous. It simply means it does not receive the same level of funding or publicity as pharmaceutical trials. I have reviewed dozens of peer-reviewed studies on rhodiola and its effects on gastric protection and muscle preservation, and the evidence is compelling, even though most clinicians remain unaware of it. But rhodiola is only the first tonic, and while it is powerful on its own, the real magic happens when it is combined with the second preparation, which addresses a completely different aspect of digestive health and muscle metabolism. This second tonic targets something that almost no conventional treatment addresses properly, and it is probably the reason why your current approach to managing heartburn has not given you lasting results. Stay with me because what I'm about to reveal about this second tonic will likely surprise you, especially if you have been told that certain foods are universally bad for acid reflux. The monks use these very foods in specific ways that completely change their effect on the digestive system. The second tonic is prepared from ginger root. But before you dismiss this as common knowledge, understand that what the monks do with ginger is completely different from how most people use it. They ferment fresh ginger with a specific strain of bacteria for exactly 14 days, creating a probiotic-rich tonic that combines the anti-inflammatory properties of ginger with powerful digestive enzymes and beneficial microorganisms. This fermentation process transforms ginger from a simple digestive aid into a therapeutic compound that addresses the root cause of both chronic heartburn and muscle wasting. Let me explain exactly what happens during this fermentation and why it matters so much for your health. Fresh ginger contains gingerols, potent anti-inflammatory compounds that reduce inflammation in the gastric lining and esophagus. However, raw ginger can sometimes irritate sensitive digestive tissue, which is why some people with severe acid reflux actually feel worse after consuming it. The monks discovered centuries ago that fermenting ginger with specific bacterial cultures converts some of the gingerols into shogalls and paradols, compounds that are more stable, less irritating, and significantly more effective at reducing inflammation and modulating gastric acid secretion. But the fermentation does something even more remarkable. It produces postbiotics, metabolic byproducts of bacterial fermentation that directly influence gut barrier function and systemic inflammation. Here is the preparation method, and I want you to pay close attention because every detail matters. The monks take 500 grams of fresh organic ginger, which they peel and slice into thin pieces approximately 2 millimeters thick. They place these slices in a clean glass jar and add 1 liter of filtered water along with 50 grams of raw honey and a 1/4 teaspoon of Himalayan salt. The honey provides food for the bacteria, and the salt creates an environment that favors beneficial fermentation while inhibiting harmful microorganisms. They cover the jar with a breathable cloth secured with a rubber band, allowing gases to escape while preventing contamination. The jar sits at room temperature, ideally between 18 and 24 degrees Celsius, for exactly 14 days. During this time, the monks stir the mixture once daily with a clean wooden spoon. After 14 days, they strain the liquid, discarding the ginger pieces, and store the tonic in glass bottles in a cool place. They consume 100 milliliters of this fermented ginger tonic twice daily, once in mid-morning and once in mid-afternoon, always between meals, never with food. This timing is deliberate. Consuming the tonic between meals allows the beneficial compounds and probiotics to interact with the digestive lining without interference from food particles. The fermented ginger works in multiple ways simultaneously. First, it reduces excessive gastric acid production by modulating the activity of parietal cells, the specialized cells in the stomach that produce hydrochloric acid. Second, it strengthens the lower esophageal sphincter through a mechanism involving nitric oxide signaling. Third, it reduces systemic inflammation, which is directly linked to both digestive disorders and muscle protein breakdown. But here is where the connection to muscle loss becomes clear, and this is something that surprised even me when I first encountered the research. Chronic inflammation, regardless of its source, triggers a cascade of signals that activate pathways leading to muscle protein degradation. When you have ongoing digestive inflammation from acid reflux or gastritis, your body exists in a constant state of low-grade systemic inflammation. This inflammatory state sends signals to muscle tissue that accelerate protein breakdown while simultaneously inhibiting the signals that promote muscle protein synthesis. The fermented ginger tonic breaks this cycle by addressing inflammation at multiple sites simultaneously. It calms the inflamed digestive tissue, reduces systemic inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, and creates an internal environment where muscle tissue can shift from a catabolic state, breaking down protein, to an anabolic state, building protein. Now, you might be thinking that this sounds too good to be true, and I understand that skepticism. I felt the same way initially, but then I reviewed the scientific literature on fermented ginger, and the evidence is undeniable. Multiple studies have demonstrated that fermented ginger extracts are significantly more effective than raw ginger at reducing inflammation and protecting the gastric mucosa. Other studies have shown that reducing systemic inflammation through dietary interventions directly improves muscle protein synthesis in older adults, even without increasing protein intake. The monks did not need randomized controlled trials to discover this. They observed the effects over centuries, passing down precise preparation methods through oral tradition. Modern science is simply confirming what they already knew. But we are not finished yet. There is a third tonic, and this one might be the most important of all because it addresses something that neither rhodiola nor fermented ginger can fully solve on their own. This third tonic works at the cellular level to restore the fundamental capacity of your body to heal digestive tissue and build muscle tissue. Without this third component, the other two tonics, while beneficial, cannot achieve their full potential. This is the missing piece that ties everything together, and it is probably the reason why you have tried various natural remedies in the past, without getting the lasting results you hoped for. Stay with me, because I am about to reveal exactly what this third tonic is and how to prepare it correctly. The third tonic is prepared from sea buckthorn berries, a nutrient-dense fruit that grows in the harsh Himalayan climate. But again, the monks do not simply eat the berries or make a standard tea. They use a specific extraction process that concentrates the omega-7 fatty acids and bioactive flavonoids in ways that maximize their therapeutic effect on both digestive health and muscle metabolism. Sea buckthorn is perhaps the most underappreciated healing plant in traditional Tibetan medicine, yet modern research has identified it as one of the most powerful natural compounds for regenerating damaged mucosal tissue and supporting cellular energy production in muscle. Here is what makes sea buckthorn extraordinary. It contains rare omega-7 fatty acids, specifically palmitoleic acid, in concentrations higher than almost any other plant source. These omega-7 fatty acids have a unique ability to reduce inflammation in mucosal tissues, including the lining of the esophagus and stomach, while simultaneously promoting the regeneration of damaged cells. When acid reflux persists for months or years, it causes microscopic damage to the esophageal lining. Over time, this damage can progress to more serious conditions. Sea buckthorn omega-7 fatty acids do not just reduce symptoms, they actually help heal the damaged tissue at the cellular level. Additionally, sea buckthorn is incredibly rich in antioxidants, including vitamin C, vitamin E, and carotenoids, which protect cells from oxidative stress, a major contributor to both digestive inflammation and age-related muscle loss. But the connection to muscle preservation is even more fascinating. The omega-7 fatty acids in sea buckthorn improve insulin sensitivity in muscle cells. This means muscle cells become more efficient at absorbing glucose and amino acids from the bloodstream, which are the raw materials needed for muscle protein synthesis. When insulin sensitivity declines, which commonly happens with age and chronic inflammation, muscle cells cannot effectively utilize available nutrients, leading to progressive muscle loss even when dietary protein intake is adequate. Sea buckthorn addresses this fundamental metabolic dysfunction, creating an internal environment where muscle cells can function optimally. Now let me share the exact preparation method the monks use for sea buckthorn tonic. They collect fresh sea buckthorn berries during the brief harvest season in late summer. The berries are immediately frozen to preserve their nutrient content, then used throughout the year as needed. To prepare the tonic, they take 200 grams of frozen sea buckthorn berries and allow them to partially thaw until they are soft, but still cold. They place the berries in a blender with 500 milliliters of room temperature filtered water and blend on high speed for 60 seconds until the mixture is completely smooth. The mixture is then poured through a fine mesh strainer to remove the seeds and larger pulp particles, though some monks prefer to keep the pulp for additional fiber content. The resulting liquid is the base tonic. Here is the critical part that most people miss. The monks enhance this base tonic by adding 1 tablespoon of cold-pressed flaxseed oil and 1 teaspoon of raw honey, then blend again briefly to emulsify the ingredients. The flaxseed oil serves 2 purposes. First, it helps with the absorption of the fat-soluble vitamins and omega-7 fatty acids in sea buckthorn. Second, it provides omega-3 fatty acids that work synergistically with the omega-7 fatty acids to reduce inflammation through complementary pathways. The honey provides natural sugars that replenish glycogen in muscle tissue, supporting recovery and preventing muscle breakdown during periods of fasting or low-calorie intake, which is common in monastic life. The monks consume 300 milliliters of this enhanced sea buckthorn tonic every morning on an empty stomach, at least 30 minutes before their first meal. This timing ensures maximum absorption of the nutrients before the digestive system becomes occupied with breaking down food. They also consume a smaller portion, about 100 milliliters, in the evening before bed. The evening dose promotes overnight healing of digestive tissue and provides nutrients that support muscle protein synthesis during sleep, or when growth hormone levels are naturally elevated and muscle repair processes are most active. Now, here is something crucial that I need you to understand about these 3 tonics. They are not designed to work in isolation. The Tibetan approach to healing is fundamentally different from Western medicine, which tends to focus on single compounds targeting single symptoms. The monks understand that the body is an interconnected system, and healing requires addressing multiple pathways simultaneously. Rhodiola reduces stress hormones and inflammation while protecting the stomach lining. Fermented ginger provides probiotics, reduces acid production, and calms systemic inflammation. Sea buckthorn heals damaged tissue, improves nutrient absorption in muscle cells, and provides essential fatty acids that support both digestive and muscular health. Together, these 3 tonics create a synergistic effect that is far more powerful than any single intervention could achieve. But I know what you are thinking right now. This sounds like a lot of work, and you are wondering if it is really necessary to prepare all 3 tonics and consume them at specific times throughout the day. Let me be completely honest with you. Yes, it requires commitment and consistency. The monks do not view this as a burden. They see it as a practice, an investment in their health that allows them to maintain physical and mental clarity well into old age. However, I also understand that modern life is demanding and that preparing 3 separate tonics daily might feel overwhelming at first. So, let me offer you a practical approach that makes this more manageable while still delivering significant results. Start with the fermented ginger tonic, as it has the broadest effect on digestive health and is relatively simple to prepare once you understand the process. While your first batch is fermenting, you can begin incorporating rhodiola, either by preparing the tonic as described or by sourcing high-quality rhodiola extract from a reputable supplier if the traditional preparation is not practical for you. Once you have established a routine with these 2, add the sea buckthorn tonic. You can prepare sea buckthorn in larger batches and freeze individual portions in ice cube trays, thawing 1 or 2 cubes each day as needed. This approach reduces the daily preparation time while still providing the benefits of all 3 tonics. Now, let me address something that many people ask me about when discussing traditional remedies. How long does it take to see results? And what should you realistically expect? Based on my clinical observations and the experiences reported by patients who have followed this protocol, most people begin noticing improvements in digestive symptoms within 2 to 3 weeks. The heartburn episodes become less frequent and less severe. The burning sensation after meals diminishes. Sleep improves because nighttime reflux decreases. However, the effects on muscle preservation and rebuilding take longer to become apparent. Muscle tissue changes slowly, and visible or measurable increases in muscle mass typically take 8 to 12 weeks of consistent tonic consumption, combined with adequate protein intake and some form of resistance activity. But here is something important that often gets overlooked. Even before you see obvious physical changes, beneficial processes are happening at the cellular level. Your inflammatory markers are decreasing. Your insulin sensitivity is improving. Your muscle cells are becoming more efficient at utilizing nutrients. Your digestive lining is healing. These changes are real and significant, even if they are not immediately visible. This is why consistency is so crucial. The monks do not drink these tonics for a few weeks and then stop. This is a lifelong practice, a daily commitment to maintaining health, rather than just treating symptoms when they become unbearable. Let me share a specific case that illustrates this point powerfully. During my research trip to Tibet, I met a 72-year-old monk named Tenzin who had suffered from severe acid reflux and progressive muscle weakness in his 50s. He had tried various conventional medications without lasting success and was beginning to struggle with basic physical tasks required in monastic life. A senior monk taught him the preparation methods for these 3 tonics, emphasizing the importance of consistency and proper timing. Tenzin committed fully to the practice, preparing his tonics daily and consuming them exactly as instructed. Within 1 month, his reflux symptoms had decreased by approximately 70%. Within 3 months, he no longer needed any conventional medication. Within 6 months, he had regained enough strength to resume physical work that he had been unable to perform for years. When I met him at 72, he was vibrant, energetic, and completely free of digestive complaints. What struck me most about Tenzin's story was not just his physical recovery, but his perspective on the process. He told me through a translator that the tonics had not just healed his body, but had taught him patience and mindfulness. The daily ritual of preparing and consuming the tonics became a meditation, a practice of caring for his body with the same attention and reverence he brought to his spiritual practices. This holistic view of health, where physical healing and mental cultivation are inseparable, is perhaps the deepest wisdom that Tibetan medicine offers us. Now, before we conclude, I need to address some important safety considerations and contraindications because, while these tonics are generally safe and well tolerated, they are not appropriate for everyone. Rhodiola can interact with certain medications, particularly immunosuppressants and medications metabolized by specific liver enzymes. If you are taking any prescription medications, consult with a knowledgeable healthcare provider before adding rhodiola to your routine. Fermented ginger, while generally safe, should be introduced gradually if you have a very sensitive digestive system, starting with small amounts and increasing slowly as your tolerance improves. Sea buckthorn is extremely safe for most people, but individuals with specific berry allergies should exercise caution. Pregnant and breastfeeding women should consult with their healthcare provider before using any of these tonics, as there is limited research on their safety during pregnancy and lactation. Individuals with autoimmune conditions should also proceed cautiously, as some adaptogenic herbs like rhodiola can potentially stimulate immune function, which might not be appropriate for certain autoimmune disorders. These cautions are not meant to discourage you, but to ensure you approach these powerful remedies with appropriate respect and awareness. I also want to emphasize that these tonics are not a substitute for necessary medical care. If you have severe or worsening digestive symptoms, unexplained weight loss, difficulty swallowing, persistent vomiting, or blood in your stool, or vomit, you must seek immediate medical evaluation. These symptoms can indicate serious conditions that require conventional medical treatment. The tonics I have described are most appropriate for chronic, stable digestive conditions and age-related muscle loss, not for acute or potentially dangerous medical situations. Now let me share with you exactly how to source the ingredients for these tonics, because quality matters enormously. Not all rhodiola supplements or dried roots are created equal. You want to source rhodiola rosea, not other rhodiola species, and you want products that have been tested for purity and standardized rosavins content. Reputable suppliers will provide certificates of analysis showing the concentration of active compounds. For ginger, organic fresh ginger root from your local grocery store or farmer's market is perfectly adequate. The fermentation process will develop the beneficial compounds regardless of where the ginger was grown, though organic is preferable to minimize pesticide exposure. Sea buckthorn is more challenging to source fresh unless you live in a region where it grows naturally. However, frozen sea buckthorn berries are increasingly available through online retailers specializing in superfood ingredients. Make sure to purchase whole frozen berries rather than processed powders or extracts, as the fresh frozen form retains the full spectrum of nutrients. Some health food stores also carry sea buckthorn juice, which can be used as an alternative to fresh berries, though you will need to adjust the preparation method slightly, using the juice as the base and adding the flaxseed oil and honey directly. Speaking of adjustments, let me acknowledge that the traditional Tibetan preparation methods are quite specific, and you might find yourself needing to modify them based on your circumstances. The monks live at high altitude with specific seasonal rhythms and have access to fresh ingredients at particular times of year. Your situation is different, and that is perfectly acceptable. The key principles are preparing the ingredients properly, consuming them consistently at appropriate times, and being patient with the healing process. If you need to use rhodiola extract instead of preparing the decoction from dried roots, or if you use sea buckthorn juice instead of fresh berries, you will still receive significant benefits. Now let me address a question that I am frequently asked. Can you take all 3 tonics at the same time, or do they need to be separated throughout the day? The traditional Tibetan approach staggers the consumption to optimize absorption and effectiveness. The rhodiola tonic is consumed before meals to prepare the digestive system. The fermented ginger tonic is consumed between meals when the stomach is relatively empty. The sea buckthorn tonic is consumed first thing in the morning and before bed, at times when the digestive system is not actively processing food. This staggered approach makes sense physiologically because it allows each tonic to interact with your system without competing for absorption or diluting the concentration of active compounds. However, I have observed that some people, particularly those just beginning this practice, find the multiple daily doses overwhelming and difficult to sustain. If you fall into this category, I recommend prioritizing consistency over perfection. It is better to consume all 3 tonics once daily in a way that you can maintain long-term than to attempt the ideal schedule and give up after a few weeks because it feels too complicated. You can start with a simplified approach, perhaps combining the rhodiola and sea buckthorn in the morning and taking fermented ginger in the afternoon. Then gradually adjust your routine as you become more comfortable with the practice. Let me also share something about the mental shift that often accompanies this practice because it is just as important as the physical effects. In Western medicine, we tend to view health interventions as quick fixes. Take a pill and expect the symptom to disappear, preferably within hours or days. This mindset sets us up for disappointment and frustration when dealing with chronic conditions that developed over years or decades. The Tibetan approach is fundamentally different. It recognizes that true healing takes time and requires active participation. The daily ritual of preparing and consuming these tonics is not a burden. It is an opportunity to connect with your body, to practice self-care, to take responsibility for your health rather than passively depending on external interventions. This shift in perspective, from patient to active participant, from symptom suppression to genuine healing, is perhaps the most valuable lesson that Tibetan medicine offers us. When you prepare your tonics each day, you are not just mixing ingredients. You are making a conscious choice to prioritize your health, to honor your body, to invest in your long-term well-being. This mindset itself has therapeutic value because it reduces the stress and anxiety that often accompany chronic health conditions. And as we discussed earlier, reducing stress directly impacts both digestive health and muscle preservation. Now, as we near the end of our time together, I want to leave you with a practical action plan that you can implement starting today. First, decide which of the 3 tonics feels most accessible to you right now. Perhaps you have fresh ginger at home and can start a fermentation batch today. Or maybe you want to order high-quality rhodiola and begin with that while you research sourcing for the other ingredients. There is no wrong place to start, only the decision to begin. Second, commit to consistency for at least 30 days. Mark your calendar. Set reminders on your phone. Do whatever it takes to ensure you consume your chosen tonic daily for 1 full month. This is not a trial period to see if it works. This is your commitment to the process, trusting that beneficial changes are occurring, even if they are not immediately obvious. Third, pay attention to your body and keep a simple journal, noting any changes you observe, no matter how subtle. Are you sleeping better? Is the heartburn less frequent? Do you have more energy? Are your clothes fitting differently? These observations will help you recognize progress and stay motivated. Fourth, once you have established a solid routine with one tonic, add the second and eventually the third. Building gradually is far more sustainable than trying to implement everything at once and feeling overwhelmed. Remember, the monks did not develop this system overnight. They refined it over centuries through observation and experience. You have time to grow into this practice. Finally, I want to address something that might be holding you back from trying this approach. Perhaps you are skeptical because these remedies seem too simple, too natural, too different from what you have been taught about treating chronic conditions. Perhaps you are worried about wasting time and money on something that might not work. I understand these concerns completely because I had them myself when I first encountered Tibetan medicine. My training was in conventional gastroenterology, in pharmaceutical interventions, and procedural treatments. Natural remedies were not part of my education, and I initially viewed them with suspicion. But here is what changed my perspective. I started paying attention to the patients who got better, not just symptomatically, but truly better, regaining vitality and function that medication alone could not provide. I noticed that many of these patients were using approaches outside of conventional medicine, often traditional remedies passed down through their families or discovered through their own research. This pattern repeated often enough that I could no longer dismiss it as coincidence or placebo effect. So I began to investigate, to study the research, to travel, and learn from traditional practitioners. What I discovered was a sophisticated system of healing that complements and enhances conventional medicine rather than opposing it. The 3 Tibetan tonics I have shared with you today represent centuries of accumulated wisdom combined with modern scientific validation. They are not magic potions or miracle cures. They are carefully crafted preparations of powerful medicinal plants that work with your body's natural healing mechanisms to reduce inflammation, heal damaged tissue, and restore metabolic balance. They require preparation, consistency, and patience, but they offer something that most pharmaceutical approaches cannot: genuine healing rather than symptom suppression. So I encourage you to approach this with an open mind and a willingness to experiment. Source high-quality ingredients, follow the preparation methods as closely as possible, consume the tonics consistently at the recommended times, and give your body the time it needs to respond and heal. Be patient with yourself and with the process. Remember that healing is not linear. You might have days where symptoms flare up despite your best efforts, and that is normal. What matters is the overall trend over weeks and months, not the day-to-day fluctuations. And please, stay connected with your healthcare provider throughout this process. Share what you are doing, monitor your progress together, and make adjustments as needed. These tonics should enhance your health plan, not replace necessary medical oversight. If you are currently taking medications for reflux or other conditions, do not stop them abruptly without medical guidance. As your body heals and your symptoms improve, you and your doctor can discuss reducing or discontinuing medications gradually and safely. I want to thank you for staying with me through this detailed exploration of Tibetan herbal tonics for heartburn and muscle loss. My hope is that you now understand not just what these tonics are, but why they work, how to prepare them, when to consume them, and what to realistically expect. More importantly, I hope you have gained a new perspective on healing, one that empowers you to take an active role in your health rather than remaining a passive recipient of treatments. The wisdom of Tibetan medicine reminds us that our bodies possess remarkable healing capacity when given the proper support. These 3 tonics, rhodiola for stress reduction and gastric protection, fermented ginger for inflammation control and digestive balance, and sea buckthorn for tissue healing and cellular metabolism, work together to create an internal environment where healing naturally occurs. This is not about fighting disease. It is about supporting health. It is not about suppressing symptoms. It is about addressing root causes. It is not about quick fixes. It is about sustainable transformation. As you move forward from here, remember that every small step counts. Preparing your first batch of fermented ginger is a victory. Consuming your rhodiola tonic consistently for a week is progress. Noticing that you slept through the night without reflux is a celebration. These incremental improvements accumulate into significant life changes over time. Trust the process, honor your commitment, and be patient with yourself. Your body wants to heal. These tonics simply provide the support it needs to do what it was designed to do. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you genuine health and vitality on your healing journey.